Hello and welcome back once again. This week I ended up doing something a little bit different. If you can't tell from the very beginning of this video, I sketched out some really small thumbnails, which is completely normal. I do that anyways. And then normally though, I sketch out some larger thumbnails and do some color tests and I film all of that process. And then sometimes I'll take a picture of it, bring it into Procreate, touch it up a little bit, print it, put it onto my nice watercolor paper. All of that I do not film, and then I film the painting process. Well, this week I didn't film the thumbnail sketching because I believed, well, I never do that, so it doesn't even matter what I believed. And then I decided, because I wanted to create an extremely symmetrical piece, that instead of trying to do another thumbnail, what I was going to do next was bring it into Procreate and create it. So that's what you saw at the beginning of the video, and it was really white. And then from there, I printed it out pretty small. I think this is like maybe 3 inches by 4 inches. I don't know the exact dimensions. I know the ratio was 8 by 10, so 3 by 4 doesn't make total sense. Anyways, so it's probably 4 by 5 inches. And I gessoed it into my mixed media sketchbook, and after it dried, I painted right over top of that. And the gesso left a weird texture. It also made it so that I couldn't get things super duper dark like I wanted to. So I'm not sure if I will ever use this method again, but it was a really great solution for this project that I was working on, because I need to be able to have my tools work for how I want to work. And having an extremely symmetrical piece, this was the easiest way for me to work. So because of that, and not having the whole entire sketching part really be in the video like it normally is, I did include a clip of me transferring it, because what I ended up doing after I did my color test was I printed it out at actual size, which is 8 inches by 10 inches, and I rubbed some pencil onto the back of the paper, and then I taped it onto my sketchbook and I traced over the top of it. And then from there, I pulled up the sketch and I could see very faintly the lines on the paper underneath. I made a few darker that needed that, and then just continued on from there with normal paint. So you'll see that at some point in the video. The other thing that you'll see in the video that you might not totally understand is at the very end, I have two like final clips is what I call them. And that is simply because I finished this and I was pretty happy with how it looked. There's a few problems I ran into, which I'll talk about in a second, but overall I was happy with it. But something just wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. And I think that is because there are a few spots where I didn't follow the color comp that I made prior. So I ended up going back later and changing a few things. So I didn't video those changes, but I ended up recording a quick 10-second clip of what it looks like at the very, very end, so you guys could see it. And that final piece will be what is used for the thumbnail of this video. So in case you're wondering why it might look slightly different from what I'm working on, I mean, it's the same piece. Really all I did was I changed the crown. I am not sure why I didn't follow the color comp. I guess I was just working and I thought my new idea would be better, but it wasn't. And I was just displeased with that. And there were a few things I was displeased with, and I guess I'll just cut into those right now. So we're not at the part yet where I do the final painting, but we're about to be. And I think I really, really like how this color comp came out. For one, her hair is a lot darker here than it is in my final piece. Even though it wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be here, it's better. And so in the final piece, I could only get it so dark because I really wanted it to be super, super blue, which is another thing I couldn't get in this comp. in the color comp because of the dark color underneath it. I couldn't make it extremely blue. So in the final, when I tried to make it extremely blue, it wouldn't go that blue and as dark as I wanted it to, and so I left it blue instead of going darker, which I wish now I would have gone darker. That's fine. If you want a really cool trick to make a dark color that's not necessarily black, is find a cool blue and a cool red is, I believe, the two that I mix together. Usually I use something like a burnt sienna and like a Payne's gray or an indigo blue, and if you mix those two together, they'll make like a really dark, warm black. And so that's what I should have done, because I have those two colors in this palette, and I should have mixed them together to make her hair's color. Her hair's color. I'm gonna go with that. But I didn't. I left it as dark indigo as I could get in 2 or 3 layers with my regular paints. And I guess if I was willing to desaturate the color even more, I could have added in some of the gray color, which name I can't think of right now. Anyways, the other issue that I ran into is, even though I had the lines to make it symmetrical, of course the piece didn't end up being perfectly symmetrical. That's something I knew was going to happen. It happens every single time you try to do symmetrical artwork, which is something I absolutely love. And it's just, unless you're doing it digital, it's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. Even if you're sitting there with the gentlest hand, there's going to be some small errors. And you just have to learn to be okay with that. I mean, it's part of traditional artwork. If you don't want little changes like that, then why are you a traditional artist? And then the final thing that I believe is what makes me not like this piece as much as the color comp is that I picked this specific page that she is being drawn on. She's actually not like on the next page in the sketchbook. She's like 3 or 4 pages down, and I picked that specifically because it was like a middle page in the sketchbook's binding. So if you look at your sketchbook, I used to bind sketchbooks. I used to bind my own, so I know a lot about this kind of stuff. And you might as well too, but if not, I'm going to quickly explain it to you. So if you open up your sketchbook to any page, you're either going to lay it flat and be able to see little holes and like string coming through it. I mean, if it's bound really tightly, you might not be able to see them. Or you're going to be able to see the actual string looping on that page. And so I picked a page where the string was looping through. And so basically what happens is you make a leaf with paper. You fold a bunch of paper in half and then you stack them inside of each other and then you sew them together. And that's how sketchbooks are made. And well, that's how sketchbooks that are hand sewn are made. There's lots and lots of processes, but this one, that's how it was done. And so I picked a page where I could actually see the hand sewing so that I could get it as flat as possible. And because of that, it was the middlemost leaf. It was one whole sheet of paper. So it would be easiest to do the symmetrical piece where my main focus was on the crack of the paper. And so I thought about that and I planned for that and I executed that. But it just doesn't look super great having her face on the crack, because no matter how you lay the sketchbook, when you let go of it, it opens, or it closes, I guess, a little bit more. So her face ends up being kind of covered. And I feel like you see that a little bit in the absolute final video clips that I show. It's hard for me to get a really good shot of the final work, and that's simply because here I have it taped down. As long as I'm working on it, it's pretty okay to see, but as soon as I get rid of that tape, it's a lot harder to see her face. And so I'm not sure if moving forward I will always have tape down the middle and kind of create 2 separate things, which is what I did on my second piece that I showed last week, or if I will allow myself to do what I did my first week, which is just not having any point of focus in the center. So who cares what's in the center as long as you don't really need to be looking at it. In the first one, it's really just all background. I'm pretty sure it's just flat color, maybe a few details in some other things. Basically, either way I go, those two will be what I move forward with, and this will not be, which is sad because that means I won't be able to do any more symmetrical pieces in this sketchbook unless, you know what, I might put my mind to it and see if there are other ways I can do it, possibly do them sideways and have them be mirrored of each other or whatnot. We'll see. I'm just, it's actually kind of fun to have these problems come up. I've recently been painting a lot outside of my sketchbook, and one of the things I hate about that is there's just all these loose papers around because I don't really sell my artwork online yet. I'm not actively doing that. So once I get to that point and I'm selling originals, it'll be a lot easier to do because, well, I'll make some artwork, I'll scan it in, and then I'll sell it and hopefully ship it off to someone. It won't just be sitting on my Etsy forever. But for right now, that's not what I'm doing. So I have all these papers with finished artwork laying around, and I don't know totally what to do with them because I'd love to hang them up, but I have so much artwork that I can't hang all of it up. I have a shelf right over my desk that has some prints I've bought along with some of my own artwork that I've created, and it's full. Like there's 2 or 3 pieces of artwork covering the back of most pieces of artwork. So I can't be doing that anymore. That being said, it means that sketchbooks are a great way for me to experiment and make more finalized art. I mean, there are sketchbooks of every single paper type, and as I stated earlier, I know how to make my own sketchbook, so if there's a certain type of paper I want, I can make my own sketchbook. And honestly, if I really, really like something, I can scan it in still and then make prints of it. I won't be able to sell the original ever, but I can still use it later on in life if I want to. And then it's all collective and bound together, and I just feel like sketchbooks look really, really nice. I've always loved art inside of sketchbooks more than art loose. So that's what I'm trying to get at with that. Back to the issue that I was talking about before I got onto a tangent of sketchbooks and different sketchbook types. So I don't know if I'll be able to do much symmetrical art in the future, but I absolutely love it. And when I say in the future, I mean just in this sketchbook. I'm definitely always going to be doing symmetrical art. I find it a huge, huge inspiration. I love symmetrical pieces where they're 100% same on both sides, and I love extreme asymmetrical pieces. I mean, I, along with every other artist, create a lot of the in-between, but that's where you're going to find my absolute interests. I think they're so visually interesting. I think they're fun to create. I want to create pieces like that, and that's where I find my love of how things look. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was actually how I go about creating extreme symmetrical pieces, and that's like this piece here where it's literally a mirrored image, or as close as I can get traditionally, on both sides. And one of the biggest tools for that, not sponsored, is my iPad Pro. If you don't know this, and honestly I don't blame you if you don't, because I only found out a few months ago. I think I found out in early September of this year, and it's November right now. So I found out probably 2 months ago, and I've had my iPad for 2 to 4 years. I don't know exactly how long. I got it pretty quickly after the 10.5 came out, so if you want to do the math, you can figure that out. I don't feel like doing the math right now. Anyways, so very recently I found out about something called the Symmetry tool. And so all you will need to use this tool is iPad Pro, Procreate, and, well, I recommend an Apple Pencil. But whatever you want to draw with, be my guest. So all you got to do is open up Procreate, create a new canvas, and then at the top left, right next to gallery, is like a little wrench. And he's super fun. I don't know what to call him. Maybe he's called the actions. I'm clicking on him right now, and that's what they're calling it. He's called the actions button. So you click on him, and then the second little bubble underneath him is called canvas. And what you're going to want to do is click on that. And then underneath that, there is crop and resize. Ignore that. And there's drawing guides, and there's a little bubble on his far right. You're going to want to turn drawing guides on. You're going to want to hit edit drawing guides, and it's going to take you to like another window where it kind of reminds me of Photoshop when you're making guides. Photoshop's guides are a lot easier to use, but hey, they're trying. So then at the bottom of the screen, this like little, not a window, but this little bar is going to pop up, and it's going to have 4 columns. There's going to be 2D grids, isometric, perspective, and at the very end, symmetry. So you're going to click on, and after you do, it's going to give you some options. The thickness and opacity are just talking about the lines that are on your screen. Drawing assist, I believe, helps you make straighter lines. I don't know what rotational symmetry, I think rotational symmetry means it would be like a flipped, however you have it. And at the very, very bottom, you're going to see 4 little squares, rectangles, and they're going to be split up different ways. And that just shows you how the symmetry is going to be on the screen. And then what's really cool is on the screen, you're going to see a line straight down the middle with a dot in the center and then a circle around it. And so you can actually click on that dot and move the symmetry anywhere. So the symmetry doesn't have to be straight down the middle. It can be anywhere. And I believe you can rotate it. Yes, you can. So I'm playing with it right now while I'm talking to you guys, of course. So if you pull the little blue dot up, there's a little green dot all of a sudden, and you can grab him and he helps you rotate. You can also, I'm pretty sure, nope, you cannot scale it. Scaling would be dumb because it's symmetry. You scale when you move. So that's how you set up the symmetry tool. And then when you do that, you're just going to hit done at the top right hand corner. That creates a layer called drawing assist or draw assist. And as long as you draw anything onto that layer, it will be however you set up the symmetry. And it's really fun to play with. I recommend before you try to create artwork with it, just have fun with it. That's what I did. It was such a blast to use. I really love going across the middle line and seeing what happens. It's just, it's so enjoyable. It makes life a lot easier too. And so that's what I used on this piece to make it absolutely symmetrical. Like I said in the very beginning, you can see the Procreate video and you might notice that like things are happening on both sides of the screen. I'm really only drawing on one side and it's mirroring it on the other. Now, if you create a new layer, you do have to set up the drawing assist, the symmetrical drawing guide all over again. So if I've moved the drawing assist at all, I just duplicate the layer and then I clear it and it'll leave the drawing assist on that new layer, but it'll leave it where it needs to be. The other thing I learned the hard way was if you make a layer with, say, perfect down the front symmetry, and then you realize, okay, well, I'm good with that, so I'm going to make a new layer that has horizontal symmetry or quad symmetry, and I think it even goes into eights. I don't know how to say that. If you change the type of symmetry on one layer, it will change them on all of the drawing assist layers. That doesn't mean it'll go and change what you've already done into that kind of symmetry, but it does mean if you go back to one of those previous layers and try to draw on it, then it will change whatever you draw in the future into that type of mirrored image. And so I found that really, really helpful because I would draw something and then I'd want a different type of symmetry for a small section. So I'd make a new layer, change the symmetry type, set it all up, draw there for just a little bit, then go back to the old layer and I'd start drawing and I'd be like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And so all you got to do is just go back into the settings, like I explained earlier, with the little wrench and the edit drawing styles, and change it back to the original type of symmetry, which means that if you go back to the second layer and want that type of symmetry, you called it, you've got to go and change the settings one more time. Procreate is an absolutely amazing and powerful tool. It can do so much, and it can do so much on the go. When I think about honestly every single thing that it can do, and I can take it anywhere, it's so portable, I'm absolutely blown away. But there are just some things about it that just limit it as a drawing device, and some of those things, of course, I do believe are user error because I just don't know how to do it. I try to research as much as I can into the questions I have or the weird things that happen. They have forums online. They are talking to people. They are making updates daily. Not daily, but they're making updates and they're releasing them, and they're really listening to customer feedback, and I love that. It's not the most intuitive drawing device. If you use Photoshop and then you switch into Procreate, there's a learning curve, and it's going to take you a while to get used to it and to be able to develop your skills the same amount on Procreate that you had in Photoshop. I know that when I first started using Photoshop about 4 or 5 years ago as a drawing device, I used it prior to that for other things, mostly image editing. But when I started to use it to draw, it was like learning a new medium over again. My brain, it wasn't even like learning a new medium, honestly, because it is a new medium. It's just like switching between watercolor and oil paints. That's learning a new medium. Switching from traditional artwork to digital artwork was like learning how to draw all over again. And switching from Photoshop to Procreate was like stepping back into that old self where it was like, I can't draw anything. And there are some days when I'm trying to use Procreate where I'm like, it doesn't look the same as my actual art. It's not as good as when I draw traditionally. And that's user error. That means I need to spend more time working on it. It means I need to figure out my brushes and my presets and work with it some more. It is not them, that is all me. But sometimes it's just like, I know how to draw. I know I'm a good artist. I'm talented. I have put years of experience into this, but that's what I just made. And you know what? Days like that, you have to forgive yourself. You have to move on, and you have to be okay with knowing that not all days are going to be good days. And not all problems are Procreate's fault, and not all problems are my fault. Anyways, I love my iPad. I love drawing on it, and I love Procreate. I actually made the switch because of the cost. I was at the point where I wanted to have a digital touch-up device, drawing tablet, all of that jazz all in one, and I wanted it to be portable, and I wanted it to be not super huge, and I was looking at Cintiqs, and almost all of them you have to plug into a computer, and even after you buy the Cintiq and you lug around that and your computer, you have to buy Photoshop, and that is a monthly subscription, whereas Procreate, you spend $9.99 right at the beginning, and you get all the updates for the rest of your life. At least that's how they've been doing it so far. I really hope they don't change that up and make people start paying monthly fees to get updates. That'll be super annoying. I will be displeased. But that is what it came down to for me, and for my own needs, and for my own financial place, and why I decided to go with Procreate over Photoshop. Now the fun part is figuring out all of the tools inside of Procreate and using them to my advantage, because there are so many tools and it is powerful, like I said earlier, but there's a lot I do not know about yet, and a lot that I feel like most people don't know about. So do your research, kids. I laugh because I still consider myself a kid. Anyways, even though I'm in my 20s. I'm not even a teenager. There are many times where I'm like, yeah, I'm a kid, right? Wrong. Well, it looks like there's not a super long amount left in the video, so I guess I will start talking about my recommendations for this week. No, that's right. Last week I stopped calling them my recommendations because that is not what they are. I'm not recommending you guys things. I'm just talking about what my week looks like in my media consumption. So, what does my life look like this week? I am actually not currently watching any TV shows. That's really weird. I've been watching a lot of YouTube. I'm trying to get into the TV show Peaky Blinders because for about 5 years now, I've had a few of my friends recommend it to me insistently. And I watched, each episode is about 45 minutes. I think I watched about 35 minutes of the first episode. And it didn't feel like something I was in the mood for right now. It felt totally like something I'll enjoy, but not at this moment. So maybe next week I'll come back and be like, hey, I finished that episode and then I watched 10 more. Who knows? So I guess that'll be my recommendation for TV shows this week. Oh my goodness, I gotta stop calling them recommendations. So I guess that'll be what I'm watching this week. What am I listening to? Oh, I actually started listening to the Oh Hellos again. I love them. And I used to listen to them a lot, maybe about 3 to 4 years ago. And my junior or senior year of college, they came out with a new album called Constellations. And it's really short. I think there's like 6 songs on there. One of them's just instrumental. It's real short. It's like a interlude kind of a song, and I've been starting to listen to that a lot more recently. I really, really like their work. Check out that album. It's the blue one. It's very pretty and it's very calming. And my personal favorite on the album is the song Constellations. Highly recommend that song. I think that's what the album's called. No. The album is called Notos. And the song I like on the album is Constellations. You'll recognize it. It's this beautifully like graphic bug and moon on this dark blue-gray background. Just look up the Oh Hellos. Any of their songs, absolutely amazing. And then what am I reading this week? I just finished Furyborn. That ended up being a lot better by the end. I realized why I had really liked it in the beginning, the first time I read it. And so I pushed myself through, and the ending was very, very good. I have the sequel. I haven't started that yet. I actually went back and I'm finishing up The Burning White this week. So I hate to do my recommendations multiple weeks in a row, but I'm going to have to say that The Burning White by Brent Weeks is again what I am reading this week. It's not a recommendation. I really need to wrap my head around that. Anyways, that's what I'm reading again this week. I'm also, in case you want something slightly different, I am reading The Raven King, which is the 4th book in the Raven cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm doing that for my book club, which is just me and one other person, but absolutely love it. It's a good series. I don't love it as much as I do the first time. This is also a reread for me, but it's still really, really good, and we're enjoying it. We're having a good time. I'm listening to that one instead of physically reading it. I'm physically reading The Burning White. Usually I'm physically reading and audiobook reading stuff at the same time, meaning I should have a recommendation from each for you every single week, but I'm only going to mention one. Although this week I'm mentioning 2 because one of them is a repeat read. So I hope you're having a really good week. I hope you're enjoying yourself. If you like this video, give it a like. If I helped you at all with Procreate, let me know. I know a few other tricks that I'd love to share. If you have any recommendations for what I should talk about in future videos, please comment down below because I love hearing from you guys. It's super great and helpful. So I hope you have a good week. Enjoy the last bit of this video, and I'm going to let you go now.